This is the Raleigh Fairgrounds, and it's Saturday, so this is the Raleigh Flea Market. And here's a look at a very small part of the flea market. And right here, right in this area, Daniel W., is where I bought this console radio. Here is the back of the radio, and you'll notice that it looks a little different, and that is because this is a battery set, or commonly known as a farm set. It was produced somewhere in the mid-1930s. And I'm not quite sure what the model number is. This paperwork on the back shelf, it's got a number down at the bottom that says 1040A. I tried to find it. I found a 1040, but it's nothing like the radio that's in the cabinet. And here is the chassis. It has 7 tubes. I did find this diagram, which is 6 tubes. This radio has an RF stage, so it has 7 tubes. The speaker is pretty crude by today's standards. It's pretty much an earphone connected to a paper cone, and in the wiring diagram they made a drawing of just that. You can see the metal rod just connecting to the cone. No voice coil, in other words. And here's the front of the radio. Here's a closer look at the bottom controls. We've got a on-off switch on the left, the tone controls in the center, and then the band switch is on the right. And here's a closer look at the dial. You'll notice that there's a little bit of cork that's fallen down. And I'll push that up someday. When I was looking this radio over and took a closer look at the chassis, I could see the filaments sticking out above the mica. In other words, it looks like they had shot out of there and hit the top of the tube, glass of the tube, and stopped. So I figure somebody really hooked this up to power, probably AC. But I bought the radio anyway. Using the closest diagram I could find, I was checking over the coils in the radio, and I found one of the shortwave coils open. And the way this thing was built, that coil was not alone. In other words, there were several coils on the same coil form. I figure at least 8 connections. And where it was located, it was just absolutely a nightmare to get to. Well, after figuring out which coil was bad, luckily I could get to it. And what I did, here's a representation of that coil. Now keep in mind there's many other coils on this form. But let's just take a look at the coil itself and take a closer look here. Somewhere it was open. So rather than disconnect 8 or 10 leads and have a lot of problems just getting the coil out, I decided, well, let's try this. I got an ohm meter, hooked it up one end of the coil, and then I got a pin a very sharp pin and hooked the other lead of the ohm meter to it. And I've got only a few turns here, but in that large coil, of course, I just very carefully picked along until I found an open. And then I put the ohm meter on the other side and it read. So I found within one turn, or about one turn, where the open was. So I very carefully, with an X-Acto knife, scraped off the insulation using a very bright light and a magnifying glass. And with a low watt soldering iron, I put a solder bridge between those two wires. And it worked. At that point, I ordered all new tubes and started changing out the capacitors. And now it's time for a demonstration. The hum that you hear is from me putting the battery eliminator on the radio. Should have put it on the carpet.
Okay, I get it. Just tell her you took them. Don't lie to the woman and send her on her way for the holiday thinking she's got the...
You're always being bathed in the glow of a cozy fire, it is.
Of my heart. The problem is, that first statement from Tiger Woods...
Now shortwave.
الذين شاركوا في البرنامج اليوم.
Este Family Radio, Oakland, California, 94621.
I'm a couple years away from wearing a diaper on these flights. Right. There were a few moments that you had some agita coming back where you woke up with the freakouts, right?
Yeah, I actually had an issue with it.
Post-Tuscaloosa.
That was